Education in Western civilization has to be examined. For the better part of the 20th century, the schooling system was intended to create workers for industry. Everything about it, from the style, the methodology, even the length of time, was designed to condition children so they would be better employees for employers. Along the way, what ultimately became of the students was a very monotonous public who were monolithic in their approach to solving problems, and who ultimately found the path of least resistance not in critical thinking, but instead in a capacity to regurgitate information. The goal became synthesis of information for production, not observation, reaction, and problem solving. Thomas Jefferson said of education, "Enlighten the people generally, and tyranny and oppression of body and mind will vanish like evil spirits at the dawn of day." Sadly, the converse is also true. If you devolve their thinking, tyranny and oppression become the hallmark of a people. If the objective of education is production, then it's training, not thinking. Training is something that all governments in the course of history have tried to reach for. If the people are manageable, the culture becomes controllable. This systematic approach to creating a productive society has limited our abilities as a people to create and think about new ideas. We have required more time and years in the school system with worsening results. Time in a rote system of education is not an indicator of capability. Instead, it is a marker of tolerance of inanity and capacity to endure the intolerable. Excellent for workers, destructive of a liberty-minded people. Great thinking keeps people free. It takes contrarian thought to open the eyes of the citizen and solve new and oppressive problems. Without the capacity to recognize the pitfalls on the horizon and having the skills set at skepticism, manipulation by the powerful is easily achieved. Western culture was founded on the breaking down of centuries-old maxims. The revolution in the United States was not simply about taxation or the lack of representation. It was the dismantling of the concept that the king was divinely appointed. The first lines of the Declaration call out something that was fundamentally against everything the world had ever known. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This wasn't about fighting against just the economic oppression of a far-off leader. They were calling out a reordering of the world. King and subject were created equal, and they all had access at the rights endowed by nature's God. This revelation and revolutionary idea came from enlightened thought, a chain of concept from person to person who challenged the normalcy of the world and asked hard, skeptical questions about how the presented order had always operated. In our era, the powerful have done everything they can to diminish any shine on that beautiful pursuit of thought. We train our children to obey, to conform, to behave. We don't ask of them to challenge the world or what they see on YouTube or the media. We want them to fit in and have a socially normal existence. That keeps the powerful in charge. It keeps the people compliant and complacent, working for the scraps from the rulers' tables. The key to changing this is asking the difference between training and education. It requires longer-form conversations in our classroom, our media, and our politics. We need to teach our children that shouting sound bites is nothing more than a religious exercise. Should we be surprised that our national discourse is infantile when our education system only trains for the simplistic approach to solving problems? Where are the thinkers that ask the questions about our processes? When will we wonder if training in rote of the 7 sacred subjects are leading us towards more liberty and freedom of mind, or less? Personally, we made a choice as a family to escape this industrial system and see if our children could start to thrive on curiosity, beauty, and examination. It has not been perfect, but it is much more normal within the confines of history to teach your children as a family unit. It is only in the last 100 years that sending your child off to a glorified daycare experience on a little yellow bus has been accepted as the norm. What we discovered in our process was that the inadequate thoughts of ourselves were self-imposed and culturally induced. We also learned that everything we needed to teach and educate our children is available to us without the mandate of some ivory tower expert. It takes work and discipline to educate children in this way. And it also takes a tremendous sacrifice of time and treasure to be sure that we are building thinkers. The jury is still out if the path we took is the right one, but having 18 years with our children in the home and with our influence, has left us in a place where they are still willing to have deep conversations with us about life and challenges and philosophical wonderment about how the world works. Certainly they will not be designed for daily industrial work, but they will think about the presuppositions of our leaders and help be a small impetus that hopefully transforms our society from a managed and weak people back to a liberty-loving, free-thinking culture. Our politics will yield different results if we learn how to embrace this love of education and not regurgitation. If we spend our time in long-form discussions and nuance, we will begin to realize that the first principles of natural law are significant and move us as a civilization towards solutions. This training way of thinking that we have engaged in keeps us barking at our adversaries, thinking that our short, snapped bits of recirculated information will persuade them. The reality of that approach is that nothing happens except that the powerful forces of government grow and the wealthy continue to consolidate their money and assets, squeezing out the poor and middle class. The politicians and well-connected win these little battles and pretend that great waves have been accomplished. All the while, our tensions grow and our struggles become vividly palpable. We can do better, but it starts with us being willing to recognize that our education and the education of the next generation involves a depth of sacrifice that has been unseen in America in generations.